Are the Texas A&M Aggies a team of destiny?
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I am Chris Gordy. Welcome into Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the #1 sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. Today, we're going to get you caught up in the latest news going around the SEC, but we got to start with the Texas A&M Aggies. Probably haven't talked enough about this team here on Locked On SEC this year. 9-0 for the first time since 1992. 6-0 in the SEC for the first time ever. A pleasure now to be joined by our guy, David Nuno from TexAgs, of course, giving us that great perspective from the Texas A&M Aggies. And David, the vibe around this team right now, the question we just posed to our audience, does this Aggie team right now feel like a team of destiny?
It does, and I'm going to tell you why, Chris. I'm glad you asked that question. Now, what does destiny ultimately mean? Does it mean a national championship? Does it mean an SEC championship? Does it mean just a fun run through the playoffs? That question still hasn't been answered, and I don't know if any team we really know completely yet, at least in respect for a national championship. But teams of destiny have these game-defining, season-defining moments, and there's been plenty of those this year with A&M. A game-defining moment was the win at Notre Dame, Nate Borkature catching the touchdown in the end zone. That's one example of it. What they did against LSU in the second half in the third quarter, 35-0 run. What they did against Mississippi State, who I know has had they hadn't won a conference game forever, but that game is also an example of it where you were down, 6-0, and you go on a 31-0 run to win that game. So, and I think you win 31-9. So, yeah, there's been these moments. There's, a couple of moments where you see Marcel Reed just completely destroying teams and his ability to juke fools out and get that touchdown or that big run. So, yeah, this season has felt that way. In this past game against Missouri, there was these two moments. There was the strip sack that turns into a touchdown for Dalton Brooks. Damian Sanford gets the strip sack, and that becomes one. The fake punt to completely chase away any momentum that Missouri was getting. So, yeah, it feels that way in this respect. But look, the way A&M and the entire program is looking at it is they're not halfway through the season yet. I mean, well, they're halfway through the season. They got a long ways to go. This is not the final quarter of the season. They got to finish the regular season, hopefully an SEC championship game, and then hopefully a long run in the college football playoffs.
You mentioned the game over the weekend. You were there. I heard you were wearing your Mizzou yellow, so good to know the team colors of the opposing team. But I mean, look, man, going on the road, another big win against a top 25 SEC opponent, and not just winning, David, but winning big. I mean, I get Mizzou was on their third-string quarterback in Matt Zollers, but a 24-point win over LSU in Death Valley, and now a 21-point win over Mizzou and Como. I think those two wins really kind of show how good this A&M team is. And I mean, the more and more I think about it, when I look around the country, like, I think this team could hang with any team in the country. What say you?
Yeah. Well, look, I feel that way. I know a lot of people want to discredit A&M for beating Missouri with their third-string quarterback. That same quarterback, everybody was picking A&M to be on upset alert with that guy who looked so good against Vanderbilt. So, I mean, I don't remember anybody apologizing for A&M being on their backup quarterback how many years in a row, how many times in a row that they get their third-string quarterback, or Le'Veon Moss going down last year. He's down this year, too, and this team's got a lot more depth to be able to withstand that. So, look, I think this team they can be a chameleon of sorts, right? They win games in multiple ways. We've seen them win games where their defense is the biggest storyline in the game. We've seen them win games where their ground game is what's apparent. We've seen them win games with Marcel Reed getting out to Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver. We've seen them win in so many different ways that, yeah, I think that travels. I think they can hang with any team. And look, every team that they're going to play, hopefully throughout this season, you can kind of use that same microscope and say, like, we should prop up Ohio State because they haven't lost in forever, and they're the reigning national champions, and they beat Texas early on. Since then, they just keep doing what they're supposed to do, what's in front of them. But I could also bring up some of the examples of the teams they've beaten that haven't been that impressive as well. You could do the same thing with Indiana. The beauty is we're in a college football playoff system that we get to find out. But before A&M could do that, they really have to worry about Lenora Sellers. I think A&M is going to beat them. But that's the mindset the team has. The media doesn't have to have that mindset. Fans don't have to have that mindset. But they've got to worry about Lenore Sellers, who, that South Carolina team has struggled this year and has been bad. But he beat you last year. And if this season is about, revenge for what happened last year and finishing, part of that finish includes beating Lenore Sellers and company. But I do think they can line up against anybody, and I would take their chances.
Talking with David Nuno from Texas Ags. David, I think there are a lot of people still maybe questioning this team, because every year when the Aggies start strong, we always see that drop off, right? Someone would start 6-2, they go 8-4. Jimbo had his ups and downs. Last year they start 8-2, they finish 8-5. So I get why there's skepticism, because it's been a while since we've seen that A&M team say we are legit and we're proving it to everybody from start of the season to end of the season. But where they sit right now, to me, it's hard to criticize anything about them. I guess the only thing you could say is, okay, maybe they haven't played some of the other top teams in the SEC, but you play the schedule you're dealt. I mean, Texas faced the same thing last year. We kind of went, well, I don't know, they haven't really been tested, but you can't do anything about that. All you can do is go out and win, and they're in a great position here. I mean, I find it hard, David, as long as they take care of business against South Carolina, even if they lose to Texas in the finale in Austin, I still think they're going to Atlanta. What would you say about this team and just kind of not having that typical drop-off that we've seen from Aggie teams in the past?
I'm going to put a little resistance in comparing A&M's schedule to Texas's schedule last year, and this is what I mean by that. Everybody knew the teams that Texas was playing before the season were going to be bad, right? Nobody knew that Vanderbilt was going to step up and be a real player. But beyond that, not having a night game in the SEC until the A&M game, the last regular season schedule. Now, you don't have to if you're a Texas fan at the time, whatever, you're given that schedule, you're doing the best you can, you take advantage of it, and I hope A&M takes advantage of their schedule moving forward. It doesn't really matter. But I don't remember those teams being top 10 teams when A&M played them, or teams that were expected to be the best in the SEC. A&M ended LSU's season. That was a knockout blow. Okay, yeah, did they have a couple of losses on the season already? Yeah, but they were still a number 15 team in the country, and A&M ripped their heads out. Okay, people were anointing Florida the greatest team in the world coming into the season and talking about DJ Lagway. So A&M's schedule initially did not look as more difficult than it has become the reality. But I also think you got to give A&M beating teams when they beat them. They beat an Auburn team when they were desperate, when they were getting robbed of wins. They got robbed of the Oklahoma game. There was another game. I can't remember their complete schedule in front of me right now, but no, they got robbed of a couple wins. They beat Notre Dame, who, by the way, A&M went to South Bend. Why am I yelling? And beat them on the road. And Miami beat them at home. It was a close game. Both games were super close, right? So, look, yeah, A&M has definitely gotten the benefit of a nice schedule as the season has played out. But when you play teams matters. And by the way, when they played Missouri mattered. They got to get Zollers, right? I was told all week from insiders that I talked to that Zollers is better at throwing the ball the deep ball. And he's fantastic at doing it. And this was going to be an upgrade to Bo Prabula. The one thing Bo had on him was that Bo could run. Well, Bo couldn't run, and Bo didn't do it. This isn't Bo Jackson we're talking about, right? Bo was hurt. Prabula couldn't throw. Zollers couldn't throw, and A&M was able to dominate that game. So, I look, we can poke holes in everybody's resume, but like you said, you have to play the games in front of you, and I also think when you play them matters. And A&M has played teams that have been desperate, and I'm sorry that what A&M did to LSU ended their season and fired their coach. Because had they won by 3 or 10 points, and Gordy, you know LSU well, I don't know if he's going to get fired after that game. It's the way A&M did it at their home field. And, oh, by the way, the 12th man represented a very place that got real quiet real quick.
Yeah, totally agree. When you beat a team, what they're ranked when you beat them that counts, because that season can go to a spiral because you beat them. So I totally agree with that. Whenever you beat a team, it's what they were ranked when you beat them. Hey, more with David Nuno in just a second. But first, college football. Of course, we are winding down the regular season, and no better place than if you want to get in the game and see all the action is to use our friends at Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It is the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. You pull up the Game Time app, in just a couple of taps, you're going to see some amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25. The app makes it super simple. You can even see the exact view from your seat before you buy. And honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way that you're going to buy college tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Just a couple more for you here, David. If I was ranking the top 10 college football portal acquisitions of this season, I mean, to me, I'd have to have both Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion in my top 10. What say you?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, they have completely changed. The biggest problem with A&M's offense last year is they didn't have any explosive players. I love Noah Thomas. I wish he stayed. I've said that 100 times. But he wasn't explosive, right? He wasn't this game-changing player. Like, you look at the Mario Craver touchdown to make it 7-7 at Notre Dame. Like, that was just speed. That was just finesse, right? So, yes, those two. And also, I'm going to go back a year prior, Gordy. I think you'll appreciate this. Cashius Howell. This guy has turned into one of the best edge rushers in the entire country, if he's not the best. He was a transfer from Bowling Green, and he waited his time. He didn't start really showing that force that he has this year until the end of last season when certain players couldn't go. So, like, I add him, I add what they did this year, and they feel like they're part of this. They feel like they've kind of grown up with A&M, right? Even though they haven't, KC cut his teeth at North Carolina State. I'll add one more to that list as well. Marcel Reed Adams, who came from Kansas the year prior. So A&M has quietly added these game-changing players at positions of substance, and they feel like they're Aggies. I look at Casey Concepcion like he's been here for years. He's only been here for a few months.
Last one for you, Nuno. And by the way, I thought Nick Scorton, what I thought he was going to do last year, he had an okay year, but like Cashius Howell is what I thought Nick Scorton was going to be last year. But last one for you, Nuno. If A&M does get to Atlanta, which again, they're in a great spot to do so, who do you think is not a good matchup? Is it Alabama? Is it Georgia? Who do you think would be the hardest matchup for them based on how this team plays?
I might say Ole Miss. Just because I think Ole Miss can spread you out and make life very difficult for you. And I think that's one of the things that Missouri did well is they spread A&M out, and they were able to run the ball between the trenches very well, and they were able to, cause some misfits. I think Georgia would be, it's hard. Like, I feel like fans from Alabama and Georgia are going to I don't know. Like, today I'm feeling Ole Miss, but I might feel like, I think Alabama's their inability to have a consecutive or a great run game, I think would play into A&M's favor. But they've beaten some good teams this year. They've beaten some really good teams. So their resume is quite impressive. Georgia scares me more than anybody if they have completely figured it out, right? Because they've played kind of on the line of like, oh, they might lose this game, and then they kind of figured out. What they did against Mississippi State felt like the team that I was worried about. So, you know what? I'm going to redo that. I'm going to say Georgia, and then I'll put Ole Miss and Alabama at that next level. And I just think that the Ole Miss matchup, the Lane Kiffin matchup does, it's just one that A&M hasn't been able to beat, right? So at least recently. So I would say that would be my order. Georgia, if they have figured it out, they're Georgia. Alabama, they've beaten some really good teams. I still think about Florida State sometimes, which isn't fair, but I do. I want to see them run the ball more. They beat LSU by, 10 points, and I think they control the game completely, but I don't know. I'm not giving you a great answer. I'd say Georgia would be probably the team as I talk it out with you.
Yeah. And then, by the way, if it is Ole Miss, I mean, you're talking about two teams getting to Atlanta for the first time ever. You don't think they'd sell out the Georgia Dome with A&M and Ole Miss fans? I mean, it'd be plenty exciting.
I think that would be just incredible. It's weird, man, as an analyst / fan, because I get to do both, right, with this hat that I wear. I almost feel like I need to be like the football program and take it one game at a time. I just got to focus on Lenore Sellers. I got to focus on the Gamecocks, which that's what they need to do. But if I'm allowed to dream, this dream for the first time in a long time feels like a reality. Because last year, even though they were in a similar position, they did control their destiny. I watched that team play, and I'm like, man, they're getting by. They're getting by winning games. Man, they're getting by. If they can beat Texas, that's going to be a hard one. But I didn't think they were the better team. I have now gone into every game, and the only game that I wasn't sure they were the better team was Notre Dame. But every game since then, I have looked at them and said, I think they're the better team. And I don't think it's close. And I didn't think it was close against LSU. And I didn't think it was close against Missouri. And Missouri really impressed me being up close to them. And I think they're the better team. I think they're better than South Carolina. I think they're better than Texas. Only time will tell.
He is David Nuno, does a great job with Texas Ags. Nuno, always appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much.
Appreciate you, Chris. Thanks, man.
Our thanks again to David Nuno. And hey, if you guys want to get in on all the action happening this weekend, no better place to do so than at FanDuel. And look, the NBA is back. You got something happening every night in the sports world. No better place to get in on all the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game, you can get in. They got live bets from everything, from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks, whatever it is. You can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push in a game. And of course, they got all the college action up there, all the big SEC games. They got them up there for you at FanDuel.com. Right now, FanDuel giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All you got to do is head to FanDuel.com, get signed up, play your game with FanDuel. They are the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, run along here, Locked On SEC. Our thanks again to David Nuno for joining us. Now let's dive into some of the big stories going on around the SEC. And we got to start with the news of the SEC Players of the Week. Diego Pavia among those. The Offensive Player of the Week, Diego Pavia. Defensive Player of the Week went to Davern Rayner from Kentucky and Damian Sanford from Texas A&M. Special Teams Player of the Week, Georgia's Peyton Woodring. O-lineman Players of the Week, Vanderbilt's Jordan White and Alabama's Parker Brailsford. Defensive Line Player of the Week, Texas A&M's Cashius Howell. And the Freshman of the Week, Kentucky quarterback Cutter Boley. So all those guys very well deserving, great weeks and performances. And we'll see who will be the SEC players of this week, moving into SEC Week 12. Meanwhile, over at Florida, some not so great news for pass catching weapons there for DJ Lagway and company. Trey Wilson, otherwise Eugene Wilson, wide receiver, is going to miss the rest of the season. Interim head coach Billy Gonzalez announced on Monday. Wilson suffered a high ankle sprain during their Week 10 game against Georgia. It was his standout game of the season. Did not play this past weekend in the loss to Kentucky. Gonzalez called him a tough son of a gun, said I talked to our training staff, and so he's going to get it cleaned up, and he's going to miss the rest of the season. So tough news there. They're also without freshman standout Dallas Wilson for the rest of the season as well. So both wide receiver Wilsons out for the year. Now, how about quarterback? Will they go back to DJ Lagway after he got benched in the shaky start against Kentucky? Well, on Monday, Billy Gonzalez telling reporters Lagway will be taking first-team reps at Florida's practice, and said competition is good for everybody when asked if Lagway would start against Ole Miss this weekend. So if Lagway is benched, Tramel Jones would step back in as QB1. Jones replaced Lagway this past week, went 9 of 17 for 60 yards. So no great shakes there. It wasn't like it was dramatic improvement. So would have to assume perhaps we will see DJ Lagway back out there for Florida. Look, it's crazy considering the kid he was so highly touted coming into the season, but he's got more interceptions than touchdown passes at this point in the year. Pretty crazy. How about over at LSU? They benched Garrett Nussmeier this past week, and Michael Van Buren came in and moved the ball a little bit for LSU at Alabama. Well, Frank Wilson saying that according to the interim head coach, Nussmeier is not a lock to start this week's game against Arkansas. He told reporters that both Nussmeier and Van Buren will play against the Razorbacks, but that Nussmeier will, quote, be the first guy that goes in at practice today. So, again, another one to watch, that they're not fully locked into a quarterback either way. Nussmeier, just one of the biggest disappointments of the season, a guy that was, got a big NIL check and was a fifth-year senior starting quarterback, returning after throwing 4,000 yards last year, and just it has been a big regression. Some chalk it up to injury, a lack of offensive line, whatever it is. The combination of all that stuff has led to not great quarterback play for LSU. How about over at Mississippi State, Blake Shapen? He missed Monday's practice with an injury, and so certainly something to keep an eye on. Jeff Lebby saying he did not do anything today, so we will be evaluating him as we move through the week. True freshman Kamario Taylor stepped in for Shapen in Saturday's game against Georgia, so certainly, again, another one we'll be watching. He said we'll be evaluating Blake Shapen throughout the week, but if we don't see positive news there on the injury report, once those come out Wednesday and Thursday, very well could be another young quarterback getting a start in the SEC, and freshman Kamario Taylor, who was very highly touted quarterback there at coming in as a recruit. So some Mississippi State fans might be saying, okay, I'd like to see what the young kid could do and maybe build something for the future. How about the old Lane train in the news a little bit? The New York Giants, they fired their head coach, Brian Daboll, on Monday. Coincidentally, a guy that was back in 2017, Alabama's offensive coordinator under Nick Saban. But Vegas odds came out Monday afternoon on who could be some candidates for the next head coach of the New York Giants, and Lane Kiffin's name popping up. Obviously a fascinating option since he coached quarterback Jackson Dart at Ole Miss, and Jackson Dart has emerged as some people would say a rookie sensation. And so people have drawn the logical line to give Lane Kiffin a call to see if he would like to reunite with his former quarterback. One sportsbook even lists Kiffin as the favorite at 4-1, followed by Cliff Kingsbury and former Michigan defense coordinator Jesse Minter. Both those guys in the NFL now. So, but again, not likely. They even, one of the articles I read said Florida and LSU are going to throw a ton of money at Lane. So New York Giants, do they want to get into a bidding war for a guy that they don't even know if he can coach at the NFL level? Not likely, but a fun story to kick around. How about Paul Feinbaum? He is going to bat a little bit for DJ Durkin at Auburn. Obviously, took over as the Tigers interim, lost in overtime to Vanderbilt, and Feinbaum was on McElroy Kublik in the morning on Monday, and he said, well, look, I've rarely ever seen such a transformation, but I think DJ Durkin ought to be seriously considered. I know a lot of people get hung up on, well, he didn't win the game, but in my opinion, that was a tremendous performance by Auburn, given what they've gone through. I've never seen this kind of turnaround. I liked his demeanor. It was just complete. So, I mean, I don't want to pour any more dirt on Hugh Freeze, but it's impossible not to see why this move should have been made. And the fact that Auburn has a pulse and played a top 10 team down to overtime, to me, is a very positive and encouraging moment. Like, it also just a malaise in the program. Sometimes it's artificial. You see it maybe for a quarter, but we saw this whole game. They played hard, and it was remarkable. So he said what John Cohen sees and how he decides to move forward, we shall see. And he said if he ends up making a change after the Iron Bowl, Auburn goes to a circus act, and maybe you'd be better just staying the course here with DJ Durkin. Did want to give a hat tip to Xavier Atkins for Auburn. I saw his 15.5 tackles for a loss this season are the most by an inside linebacker in Auburn football history. So there are some dudes on that defense who are playing hard for DJ Durkin and Auburn. They just cannot close out these games and get a win. Over at Texas, Steve Sarkisian talking on Monday, giving an update on 3 Longhorn players who suffered injuries the last couple of games. Sophomore wide receiver Ryan Wingo, fifth-year senior safety Michael Taff, both coming off thumb injuries. Taff missed the game against Vanderbilt after breaking his finger against Kentucky. Junior safety Jelani McDonald suffered a concussion against Vanderbilt. But reports are they are practicing and are all expected to play against Georgia on Saturday. Sark saying all those guys practiced Monday morning, look great. Don't foresee any setbacks there, so feel good about that. I will say that the bye week came at a very good time for us from a standpoint of getting guys healthy. So Wingo suffered that thumb injury in the win over Vanderbilt after scoring a 75-yard touchdown on a screen pass. And obviously, Michael Taff, kind of the leader of that secondary as a safety and a really, really good tackler. How about over at let's check in at Alabama. Obviously, they've had great success with quarterback Ty Simpson so far this year. And Kirk Herbstreit says that Ty Simpson is the best quarterback prospect in this upcoming draft. He said, quote, he's not sexy. He's not going to go to the combine. He's not going to be, look at this guy. but he seems to be a guy that has an ability to read, recognize coverage, process, and get the ball out. He can move around just enough to be able to be dangerous, to be able to keep plays alive. But we don't have that huge 6'4", 240-pound guy that everybody's going to say, wow, I can't wait to watch this guy does. But he said, look, his lack of experience might be a concern, being first-time starter at Alabama this year. But he said the production is hard to ignore. Mel Kiper agreeing. So we shall see what happens with the top pick in next year's draft. All right, something fun to take a look at before we get out of here. I saw somebody post on social media going back to list the preseason teams that were in the top 25 that are now unranked. And it's pretty wild to look at how many teams. Number 2, Penn State, preseason number 2. Number 4, Clemson. Number 9, LSU. Number 11, Arizona State. Number 12, Illinois. Number 13, South Carolina. Number 15, Florida. Number 16, SMU. Number 17, Kansas State. Number 22, Iowa State. Number 25, Boise State. Obviously, LSU, South Carolina, and Florida there are making the top of that list. And from the SEC, disappointing seasons, to say the least, for those three. By contrast, you look at the schedule. Texas was the preseason number 1 team. They're now at number 10, but they were unranked just a few weeks ago. Georgia was preseason 5. They're currently 5, so looking good there. Alabama was preseason number 8. They're currently 4th. Ole Miss, preseason number 21, currently ranked 6th in the country. Oklahoma was preseason 18. They're currently 12th. Texas A&M, preseason 19, currently the number 3 team in the country. Tennessee was preseason 24. They're currently number 21. And Vandy was preseason unranked, number 13 team in the country. You can catch us all over state of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Catch us weekdays at 11:30 a.m. Central. Gulf Coast Sports Entertainment Network, home of the New Orleans Pelicans and home of Locked On SEC. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Come on back and see us.